Good morning, welcome back to the channel. We have a mouth-watering clash on Sunday to see who will be crowned Wimbledon champion on the men's side of the draw. Carlos Alcaraz will be looking for his second consecutive Wimbledon title and fourth major, and Novak Djokovic will be looking for his 25th major, record equaling 8th Wimbledon title to go alongside Roger Federer in what was a repeat of last year's Wimbledon final clash. I did finally get two perfect predictions in my semi-final previews. I predicted Alcaraz to defeat Daniil Medvedev in 4 sets and Novak Djokovic to defeat Lorenzo Musetti in 3 sets as well. Just quickly before I go into previewing this epic clash and predicting who I think will lift the title on Sunday, a huge thank you to anybody that has watched my content throughout Wimbledon. Do thoroughly appreciate it. And also, if you would take a couple of seconds to subscribe to the channel, that would be greatly appreciated. I will be covering Tennis Olympics, US Open, both ATP and WTA finals, as well as a number of other tournaments. And I do have a dream of working in tennis media. I use this channel to improve my skills, to improve my tennis knowledge, to shine some more light on the sport, and overall, just a sport that I'm hugely passionate about. I love watching, analysing, and it would be a dream of mine to work in the sport one day. So how I'm going to do this, I'm going to quickly back at each player's route to the final, review their semi-final performances before looking at how I think each player can have success in the matchup, and finally, giving my prediction for who I think will lift the title on Sunday. Carlos Alcaraz, route to the final. He hasn't played anywhere near his best, but he has came through a tough draw. I don't think Alcaraz has played his best tennis throughout 2024, particularly at the Australian Open, where I didn't think he played his best and he was struggling with the forearm injury. At the French Open, despite winning the title, I think he didn't play his best against Jannik Sinner, and had Sinner's body stood up, I think he would have won that one. Zverev threw away a great opportunity from 2 sets to 1 up and gifted Alcaraz the match in the decider. But he still deserves huge credit. You know, he's 21 years old. He's an unbelievable ambassador for the sport on and off the court. He's going to go down as one of the greats. I've got no doubt about that. Already won 3 Grand Slam titles at the age of 21. He's just an unbelievable talent. And I think everyone just wants to see Alcaraz play his absolute best tennis. He has came through a tough draw, you know, defeating Tiafoe, Humbert, Tommy Paul, who was in fantastic form, Daniil Medvedev. That's certainly not an easy route. So you've got to give him credit for getting through to the final. Last year, we saw him really peak at Wimbledon from the quarterfinal stage, and I think we've seen signs of that against Tommy Paul and Medvedev, where he's played some of his absolute best tennis in moments, but we're still seeing him have those lapses in concentration. We're still seeing the erratic forehand at times. He's not serving fantastically well, but I do feel like everything's mounting up for Alcaraz to put in a huge champion performance on Sunday. I have really liked 2 things that I've seen from Alcaraz in these 2 weeks, and one being his ability under pressure. We've seen him play a tiebreak that he had to win against Tiafoe, that he played wonderfully well. Against Humbert, he was reeling at one point when he lost 5 or 6 games in a row. He fought back to win the 4th set 7-5. Tommy Paul, he was 7-5, 2 love down and came back and won. Medvedev, he played a terrible opening set and come back and won in 4. So when he's facing adversity, Alcaraz is producing his best in the moments that he needs to, and that's seeing him reach another Wimbledon final. I also feel like with Alcaraz, when he's serving well, he's a completely different player. We saw yesterday against Medvedev, when he found his first serve in those 2nd, 3rd and 4th sets, he has the ability to open up on the forehand. And when he's got the ability to open up the forehand and take time on that shot, it's absolutely devastating and so destructive that even Medvedev was getting nowhere near the ferocity and the power of Alcaraz's forehands. So it's so key that he does serve well in this final on Sunday. In terms of reviewing that semi-final performance, I think one thing I really noticed about Alcaraz is his ability and the development of his backhand in the last couple of years, in my opinion. He's got the ability to really use the slice now, which is such an important shot at Wimbledon. And then when he gets a short ball or a slow pace ball on the baseline, he can inject pace so well with his backhand. So he's got them 2 shots where he's got the ability to take pace off and take a person wide. And then when he gets the short ball or a little bit of pace off, he can, you know, smash a backhand cross court or down the line with real precision and power. And having that ability to have that variety in your backhand is such a huge weapon, particularly on the grass. I thought Alcaraz's running forehand was very wayward early yesterday. Medvedev attacked a lot as they expected. He done that successfully against Sinner. And Medvedev last year was far too passive and negative against Alcaraz, which saw him get defeated in straight sets. I did think Medvedev looked uncomfortable around the net, but he was effective. I think it still threw Alcaraz a little bit in the opener, but as the match went on, he started to read the Medvedev play and soon started to counter punch and hit the passing shots and just outclassed Medvedev with his quality. Alcaraz in the opening set hit 48% the first serves and made 15 unforced errors, so it was a terrible opening set from Alcaraz, but even at that point, you felt like Alcaraz was going to problem solve. He was going to find his best tennis, and when he did, he was going to take over the match. From set 2 onwards, I think Medvedev did get found out of the net. We know he's not at home there. We know he's trying to adapt and be more aggressive against the top 3 players. Look to finish the point with a serve and volley or rush the net. But he didn't volley particularly well, Medvedev. I thought he was a little bit safe at times, a little bit passive around the net. And Alcaraz's speed, his passing shots, his reactions are too good. And at that point as well, Alcaraz has stopped making unforced errors. I think he really dominated the long exchanges from the second set onwards. And he had the quality edge against Medvedev in the ball striking department, as you would expect. He also served a lot better, as I mentioned, and I think that just allows him time to open up on that crushing forehand and really rush the net with volleys. When Alcaraz can step inside the court and dictate points and do the point in his terms, then he wins the majority of the time. One thing I noticed with Alcaraz yesterday, in the first set, I thought he was just too impatient. I thought he was looking to entertain rather than play the calculated and correct shot. He just had to be patient yesterday. I don't think Medvedev was hitting many clean winners at all from the baseline. I think he hit 6 throughout the match. Alcaraz just had to hit length and, just dominate Medvedev and wear him down because he's got such great ball striking and hits such a heavy ball on both forehand and backhand. Medvedev was never going to be able to counter punch or defend on a grass court, and I think Alcaraz just had to keep doing what he was doing from the second set onwards. I never felt that Alcaraz was in a danger of losing, although he was very poor in that opening set, and Medvedev still only won it in a tiebreak. I felt as soon as Alcaraz served better, he could attack with his forehand, use his speed and his craft to really dominate around the net and showcase the amazing ability that he has. And then just be patient and rallies, as I mentioned. I don't think Medvedev was ever hitting through him because of his lack of ball speed. And Alcaraz is just ridiculous athleticism. His defense, his counter punching was just too much for Medvedev on a day that, Alcaraz probably didn't play his best match, but he didn't have to. I would say it was a 7 out of 10 performance-wise for Alcaraz. Always in control, guilty of trying to entertain rather than play the correct shot at time, but ultimately was never going to get punished to a point where he wasn't going to win the match. Moving on to Novak Djokovic, I think Djokovic has definitely had the benefit of a fantastic draw so far when you look at, from quarterfinals onwards, or even round 4 onwards against Holger Rune, who offered no threat whatsoever, was far too passive and defensive. Quarterfinally got a walkover against Dimino, then a semi-final against Musetti in a head-to-head, which he's dominated. And, you'd have to favour Djokovic in a cross court to come through against Musetti. The exits of Hurkacz and Zverev and, the walkover of Dimino have been very useful for Djokovic at 37, recovering from surgery. I think anytime you get a walkover in a Grand Slam, it's a huge plus. I do think it was his best performance of the championship so far against Musetti. It was a good test. I think Musetti played about as good as he could have on the grass court, but Djokovic just overall had the serve and return, which were the ultimate difference in my opinion. I think both Alcaraz and Djokovic will have to improve. Both will bring the best out of each other, as they did in the final last year. Although conditions last year were scrappy with the wind, it definitely affected Djokovic's serve. He'll be hoping for a dry, calm day weather-wise and really utilise that serve and return as much as possible. I think positives for Djokovic in the championship so far have been his serve, his volley, his net play. He's certainly going to need that against Alcaraz. I don't think Djokovic wants this match to be too physical and exert and go 4 and 5 hours with brutal baseline exchanges. Alcaraz being younger by 16 years and Djokovic coming off the back of a poor year so far in 2024 and on the back of knee surgery. I think you'll want to shorten the point as much as possible, but I'll get back into that later on in the video. Semi-final review. Djokovic just didn't give Musetti the time that he likes. Musetti's a player that on clay, when he gets the time to hit the ball, particularly on the backhand, and uses variety and pull players around the court. That he's very impressive. We've seen him take sets off Djokovic at the French Open in the past. Djokovic, I felt, was very clinical moving forward. He was so precise. He moved Musetti from side to side, and Djokovic just tied him out by being on top in each rally. I felt like Musetti struggled to really enforce himself on the match and really move inside the court and dominate at any point. Musetti, I felt, in the opening sets was too passive. He was constantly slicing, but as I mentioned in the preview, that wasn't going to work against Djokovic in the same way it did against Fritz. Djokovic is very capable of re-slicing or hitting through it, particularly with the cross-court forehand. A shot that I thought he executed very well yesterday. Djokovic used any opportunity that he could to get to the net. The drop shot he used, I thought, very effectively and cleverly because of how deep Musetti was in the court. And at the net, it's just easy for Djokovic to hit through Musetti because he can react to any passing shot and volley into the open court, which, again, he done well yesterday. I also thought he done a great job of rushing the backhand and moving in. Musetti at that point would have to pass Djokovic at the net using a single-handed backhand, and that's a very difficult shot to do, arguably the most difficult in the sport, to pass Djokovic with a passing shot in the single-handed backhand. Musetti, I don't think, gambled enough on return position. I thought he altered it throughout this midway in the second set, and he did have a little bit of success, but it was probably too late. But even on some second serves, he was too deep and just hitting the ball back into the court, making sure he made a return. And that was just allowing Djokovic to step in the court, control, dictate points. And, even when Musetti did get creative, I just thought Djokovic's movement, his flexibility, his skill, his ability to execute under pressure is still outrageously good for a player of his age and, a player of experience, I suppose. You do expect that, but it's still mind-blowing to think, he had surgery 5 or 6 weeks ago and he's performing at the level that he is. Djokovic's serve definitely got him out of trouble. He was 5-5, love 30 in the second set and served 4 aces. And in the tie-break, he had 2 unreturned serves in the tie-break and also 1+1. So that serve definitely got him through the second set at the back end. And from that point on, it was very difficult to see Musetti mounting a comeback. Overall, I would say Musetti played a brilliant match, about as good as he could have played, in my opinion. The grass just doesn't suit his game against Djokovic due to the flat nature of the court. It just allows Djokovic to dominate using his serve and return and then really rush the net. On a clay court, the serve and return are less effective, and that would allow Musetti into more points where he could use his varieties, take the points deep. And he did have success in the longer exchanges, but ultimately Djokovic was just too clinical on the day and moved through to a 10th Wimbledon final, in which he looks for an 8th Wimbledon title on Sunday. So now, conclusion-wise, how I think this match goes, well, you can't identify any major weaknesses. The whole point of this video is to look at where I think the match can be won and lost, but it will be ultimately decided by a few points here or there. I've tried to pick a couple of aspects of each person's game where it may be decided, but there's no way you can say, Alcaraz doesn't play his backhand well or Djokovic doesn't play his forehand well. They're both, top 3 in the sport. They're both unbelievable champions, and hopefully they put on a great show for us fans on Sunday. How can Alcaraz, win this match on Sunday? I think the key for Alcaraz is controlled aggression. He was too impatient in that opening set against Medvedev, which saw him make 15 unforced errors, particularly on the forehand side. I thought he was going for too much too early. He's a player that really wants to entertain, and that's what I love about Alcaraz. Whether he's winning or losing, he always seems to have a smile on his face. He's always trying to entertain. He'll have the crowd on his side, and I think it's because he's so young, so exuberant. He knows he's got every shot in the book. He thinks he can hit winners from everywhere, and that makes him an amazing player to watch. But I do think sometimes, in semi-finals and finals, he tries too hard to hit winners from difficult deep balls, and he doesn't need to do it in a way. Alcaraz is a player that, as I've mentioned, he can switch up with the backhand with amazing variety. He can generate ridiculous pace off both wings, forehand and backhand. He's got brilliant drop shots and speed and control around the net with his brilliant hands. He's got amazing defense, incredible counter punching, speed, tenacity. He doesn't need to do too much with the ball because it all just comes so naturally to Alcaraz. He's got every shot in the book, and he's just such a wonderful tennis player that he almost doesn't need to try too hard. He just needs to play tennis, and most of the time he'll come out and win the match. One thing I think for Alcaraz, he must maintain depth because he will beat Djokovic in long rallies with heavier ball striking, but he needs to stop Djokovic attacking the net, and he'll do that through keeping length and keeping Djokovic from behind the baseline. I also feel like Alcaraz needs to serve well. Djokovic is a player that returns incredibly well, particularly on second serve. He really steps in the court, looks to be aggressive, looks to hit it down the line and move in towards the net. And if Alcaraz serves it, 48% of first serves as he did against Medvedev in the open set, then Djokovic will punish that. But I do feel like, Alcaraz, when he gets to the back in the majors, he does find that first serve, and it's a huge weapon of his. It allows him to open up in the forehand and really dictate and step in the court and hit clean winners. If he can make 65% plus first serves, we'll see him, really crush forehands and mush the net. And I think that'll be a huge part of him going on to win the title. In terms of how Djokovic can win the title, I think he has to construct points in a way that he can attack the net and finish points early. The serve is obviously a huge weapon. He loves to serve and volley. He won pretty much nearly every point. He done that against Musetti yesterday, and I think he used it a lot to just practice it and get used to doing it on the big stage again, because he hasn't really been pushed this year in 2024 in terms of elite competition. Hasn't been to a final yet. And I think the return as well could be the difference. He wants to pressure the Alcaraz serve, stop the +1 play on the forehand. And especially if Alcaraz doesn't serve well, as he hasn't throughout this championships, then Djokovic will jump all over that. And I think Djokovic will know himself at 37 years old, after not reaching a final in 2024, so not playing as much tennis as Alcaraz, on the back of a knee surgery, he won't want to go into a war with Alcaraz in a real war of attrition. I think he'd be looking to end the points as early as possible. Baseline exchanges, grueling rallies, exhilarating, running will suit Alcaraz over the stretch, I feel, over 5 sets. And the longer the match goes on, the more I think it favours Alcaraz being the younger player. Djokovic is a master of creating angles, and this is where I think Djokovic could have the edge, because Alcaraz's running forehand was erratic against Medvedev and has been throughout the tournament. I think it's been very hot and cold, his forehand. When he's given time to step inside the court from particularly the centre of the baseline, he's very destructive. If you can get him on the run and keep him deep, then he does seem to go long and wide. So I think Djokovic should be looking to do that with his cross-court forehand, which is a very strong part of his game. And I also feel like Alcaraz's backhand down the line isn't his best shot. I think Djokovic's key is to keep Alcaraz as wide as possible. I think, when Alcaraz is on the baseline and playing his terms, he's got amazing variety with his backhand, as I mentioned, and an amazing ability to generate such devastating pace off both wings. But if you can keep him wide on the run, I don't think Alcaraz is at his best. And I think that's where Djokovic will look to keep Alcaraz. To win this match, Djokovic just has to be the aggressor. As I mentioned there, with his 37 years old and knee surgery, he won't outlast Alcaraz from the baseline due to his age and his physicality and his ground stroke speed. Alcaraz is one of the best baseline players I've ever seen watching the sport at such a young age. I think he's, going to just only improve, and he's already such an amazing talent. Who I think wins this match, it is very, very tough to call. Hopefully it's a thrilling final, because I think we need it. I don't think it's been a great men's tournament, to be perfectly honest. I don't think we've had any classic matches yet, but this is the one that we've all sort of been waiting for. The mouth-watering clash, the repeat of 2023 final. In conclusion, Djokovic is a year older, on the back of knee surgery, poor form since the 2023 final, especially in 2024. But is Alcaraz playing as well as he did in 2023? Probably not yet, in my opinion. If Djokovic has an incredible serving day and Alcaraz has a poor serving day and doesn't improve his forehand consistency, I do think Djokovic can win. But I feel like Alcaraz's ability from the baseline, his fitness, his defence, his athleticism, his ability to perform so well under pressure and in Grand Slam finals, I think will win him it. And if I was pushed, I would go Alcaraz to win in 5 sets. But I hope it's just a fantastic final. I hope Djokovic wins it, being a fan. And yeah, should be a great match. But huge thank you for watching this video. If you do want to leave your comments of who you think will win the final, in the comment section below. It would be greatly appreciated. If you could also leave a like and subscribe on the channel, that would be fantastic as well. I've got a couple of reasons there why I do YouTube and which events I will be covering. So thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.